Hi, it's Lindsay Carlson here. I love the Rocky and Creed movies, and I'm doing something today that I've been wanting to do for a while. I'm actually going to do a list ranking all 9 of the films in this universe. All 6 Rocky movies, all 3 Creed movies. I'm not going to waste any time with a long-winded explanation. Let's just get down to business. At number 9 at the bottom of the list, I have Rocky 4. This, of course, is the montage-heavy 80s film where Rocky goes to Russia and single-handedly wins the Cold War. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know. I mean, I like all the Rocky movies, but I do have to put this one in last place just because it's the silliest and most ridiculous over-the-top one of the bunch, and where the character has pretty much lost all semblance of the boxer we were introduced to back in 1976. There are some good moments in this one, but at large, it does have to remain at the bottom of the list. Sylvester Stallone did that Rocky vs. Drago director's cut a few years ago, and that does help a few things, but at the end of the day, Rocky 4 is always going to be Rocky 4. Number 8 on the list, I have Rocky 2. This, of course, being the immediate follow-up to the original film, featuring some pretty heavy drama, including Rocky's marriage and the birth of his first child, as well as him having to struggle financially, trying to find a way to make ends meet, coming to the conclusion that he has to go back to being a fighter. The biggest problem I have with this movie is Apollo Creed basically just goes to being a jerk who chides Rocky, getting him to do the rematch, whereas they actually ended the match on much friendlier terms at the end of the original Rocky. I mean, the drama-heavy approach of this movie, unfortunately, wasn't going to carry the series, so it's no surprise that it was pretty heavily reinvented and retooled after this movie. It does feel like a rehash of the original movie at times, but does it to a far lesser extent. At number 7, I have Rocky 5. This one tends to get a lot of hate, and there certainly are problems with Rocky 5, but I don't hate the movie. I don't hate any of the movies, honestly. Personally, I like the fact that they bring Rocky back down to street level and give him a new and interesting challenge, and he ends up having to deal with Tommy Gunn, who he was training, but who ultimately turns on him due to all the potential for glory. Personally, I think there are some great elements in this movie. I mean, there are some problems, no questions asked. The real boxers in the movie and Sylvester Stallone's son aren't exactly A-list actors, and it does show in the scenes that they're in. But overall, I actually did like that this film grounded the series after the over-the-top antics of Rocky 4. At number 6 on the list, I have Creed 2. This is the second of the 3 Creed movies, and this time around, Ivan Drago's back in the picture with his son Victor Drago getting ready to fight Adonis Creed, much like, of course, Rocky is constantly warning Adonis not to take on the challenge, seeing flashbacks of Adonis' father Apollo being killed by Ivan Drago back in the day. This movie borrows pretty liberally from the other movies. It pretty much feels like a remixed version of stuff we've seen in earlier Rocky movies. I do appreciate the fact that they try to humanize Ivan Drago a little more here, but at large, this one is a bit hit and miss. Not a bad film, but certainly there are better ones in this franchise. At number 5 on the list, I have Rocky 3. This is where, according to some reviewer I read online, the series stopped being films and started being movies. However, I really don't think that's a bad thing. This time, it's stripped down to the core basics, more of a focus on action, but there's still plenty of drama here. It's tightly paced, and of course, it features Rocky going up against Clubber Lang, one of his toughest opponents. And this movie absolutely delivers. There's actually more action in the first 10 minutes of Rocky 3 than there are in the first 2 movies combined. So, the changed approach, I think, did work wonders for the series and kept it fresh. At number 4 on the list, I have Creed. This is the first of the 3 Creed movies, and the one that introduced us to Adonis Creed, the illegitimate son of Apollo Creed, who of course would go on to carry this series. He gets trained by Rocky Balboa after moving out to Philadelphia and quitting his steady office job, wanting to pursue fighting full-time. And it's not long before he does find himself over his head in more than a few ways. And there is some good drama here, great supporting cast as well, including Tessa Thompson as Bianca, his love interest. This was a great reinvention and rebirth of the Rocky universe. I mean, it's not quite a spin-off, it's not quite a sequel, it's not quite a side story, but what it is an excellent film. At number 3 on the list, I have Creed 3. Of the Creed movies, this is my personal favorite. A lot of people complain that the character of Rocky is not in this movie, but it's always been about passing the torch to Adonis, and I think he certainly does carry this film. Plus, it introduces Diamond Damian Anderson, a man who was, a childhood acquaintance of Adonis, with whom there were a lot of troublesome times. So when he comes back into his life, we actually have a decently well fleshed out character and probably the most interesting opponent that Adonis has ever had to face. Not to mention a lot of the family drama here actually weighs in pretty well. I mean, of course, much like Rocky before, Adonis couldn't stay retired. He had to get back into the ring, and this film does that exceptionally well. It is a great film despite the lack of Rocky himself. And number 2 on the list, I have Rocky Balboa. This was the 6th and final film in the Rocky series, and it didn't come out until 16 years after Rocky V. This sounds like it's just going to be some sort of cheap cash grab, but it's actually, funnily, probably the best Rocky movie since the original one. This time around, we see an aging Rocky dealing with his lot in life, his wife having passed away, he now running a restaurant and no longer in the ring, but he still yearns for the glory days, and of course gets his chance when there's an exhibition fight proposed against Mason the Lion Dixon, the world champion. Here you get to see Rocky, back in a more dramatic, slightly less cheesy context, and the drama here is excellent, and the big boxing match at the end is a lot of fun as well. This movie is much better than you would expect it to be. And number 1 on the list, what else could it possibly be? Rocky, the original 1976 film. This was just a little, no-budget film at all that was written by Sylvester Stallone, who at the time was struggling and poor, but this was the movie that made a star out of him. And this just has that gritty, low-budget, low-income street vibe, and that really adds to the authenticity of the film. I mean, the movie makes great use of the Philadelphia settings, and Rocky's world truly feels lived in, believable, and it's just the most grounded and, in my opinion, the all-around best of these films. How about you? What is your favorite Rocky movie? Do you agree with my list? Do you want to post a list of your own? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos, and give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Timothy Carlson. I'll see you next time.